Hello, winners, and welcome to Two for the Win with your hosts, Nick and Wil. We have a special guest in store for you today, Dr. Albert. He's going to chat about a variety of topics that I think all of our winners will really enjoy. But before we jump into that, please be sure you share, subscribe, and follow Two for the Win on your favorite platform. I want to give a shout out to nickmenard.com and the 1% Push for sponsoring today's episode. But let me pass it over to my co-host to introduce our special guest and get started.
Absolutely. It's my honor today to introduce our special guest. Absolutely. So you already mentioned our guest is Dr. Albert Bramante. He's a talent agent, performance psychologist, and mindset expert who has spent over 20 years helping high performers, both in the entertainment industry and beyond, conquer their mental roadblocks. With a PhD in psychology and certification in hypnosis and NLP, he bridged the gap between talent, business success, and the psychology of peak performance. So it's our honor to introduce to you today, Dr. Albert. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I really appreciate you having me on here, Nick and Wil. I'm happy to be here and happy to have a chat with all of you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before starting, I realized by making some research, of course, online that you have also a book on Amazon. So can you tell us more about your book before we get started into some...
Sure. It's called Rise Above the Script, Confronting Self-Doubt and Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists. And so kind of brings my work as an agent for the past 21 years. I'm a talent agent full-time, and I represent actors for film, TV, theater, commercial, print, and voiceover. And I also, since my background in psychology, the one gap that I kept finding when I was starting off as an agent, and I still see this now, is a high degree of actors and performers who are engaging in self-sabotaging behaviors. And that means, not showing up for auditions, not really living their fullest potential. And I couldn't figure out what was really going on. So when I was in my PhD program, I wanted to specialize in working with actors. So I did my PhD thesis or dissertation on self-defeating behavior in performing arts. And so that's how that all came to be. And years later, I turned my PhD into a thesis into a book. So Rise Above the Script is based on my doctoral dissertation. And we go over different areas of why people might self-sabotage. I mean, it's written for performers, but it can really be applicable to anybody. Anybody who's really putting themselves out there, coaches, salespeople, educators, or, just anybody who has to perform, speakers. So, and I bring about a lot of strategies to help increase your self-esteem, optimize your personality traits, work on fear of success, and really I look at the book as a kind of like a gateway to have conversations on these important topics.
Got it. No, that sounds phenomenal. And I think, as you're sharing that, um, we talk about obviously leadership and mindset, as but there's a lot of parallels, I think, when you think about theater or entertainment to business, right? You need to prepare, you need to bring your A game when you're on the stage, and that could be a literal stage, like with the case with some of your clients, or it could be, in a boardroom or a presentation that you're doing in the more commercial setting. But, when you said you saw that gap and people were maybe not putting forth their best effort by preparing in the way that they should, maybe you could dive a little bit deeper. Like, what were some of the things you kind of mentioned, the mindset piece and things like that, but were there certain things that you felt like, wow, these were the common threads, and this was the guidance that I gave that really helped make a difference with your clients?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is mindset, because when you're in the performing arts space, it's very exciting, but it's also a very incredibly challenging competitive industry to be in, because there's so many. I'm in I'm based, near New York. So in New York, there's several hundred thousands of actors, and not to mention you combine that with LA, Los Angeles, and you're dealing with several hundred thousand actors that are often unemployed most of the time.
Mhm.
And that's why you have that kind of like a stereotype, which is somewhat true, which is most actors are going to be waiting tables or doing something to as a survival mechanism, because it's not those cities are not cheap to live in.
Mhm.
So you have those a combination of living expenses plus all of the fact of trying to sustain a career in marketing and all that, which is going to add up. So after a while, what happens very often is you're putting yourself out there, you're pouring your heart and soul on these auditions, and maybe not seeing a return right away. And that could be a while. It could be 6 months to a year between an acting job, and that can be a bit of a burden on the soul
Mhm.
of the actor and the spirit of the actor because they're so excited about putting themselves out there and about really making themselves known so that now they're out in the field and they're not getting any returns. And then
Mhm.
of course they get pressure from their family and friends who are not in the industry, don't really understand how the industry works. And some of the message that you're going to get is, don't you think you should get a real job? And don't you think it's time to get serious? And not to mention that most of them, a lot of them dropped, up almost six figures on a college, university, or conservatory program for tuition wise. So all of those factors add in as to why a lot of actors start self doubting themselves or have major imposter syndrome because it's so much of the fact that there's a big element there of not, really living your fullest potential in a sense.
Yeah, for sure, Albert, and I think, again, it's so interesting because as you're sharing that, part of our audience are aspiring entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, right? And it's a kind of similar thing, right? Like they have a job, maybe they probably have student loan debt, and they want to build something and kind of create something that's theirs and help people, but have that independence. But if you don't get off to a fast start, self doubt can creep in. Family and friends trying to be helpful, maybe trying to encourage them to give up their dream and do something else. So, like, and you mentioned the imposter syndrome, and I've shared even my story in the past, like as I progressed through corporate America, every time I got a new role, there was always that little bit of self-doubt, even though I was confident and excited to earn the opportunity, but it's like, am I really up for this? And stuff like that. So, what would be some words of advice you would share or like share with your clients that in a way, it's really about having grit and perseverance, right? Staying the course and trying to power through those maybe lulls in their activity.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that, for success in any type of entrepreneur journey, because that's what really actors are at the heart of it. They're entrepreneurs, they're business owners.
Mm,
So the main thing is perseverance. The main thing is grit, resiliency, and being able to just stay persistent. And so one of the things that's important is to get a good tribe, like a good network
mm,
that supports you. So, and that's why, like for business owners, there's all these like business networking groups, and that you can do virtually, also in person.
mm,
So I encourage, especially actors or business owners, to really be networking with one another
mm.
and working with each other because that's so important
Yeah.
to be able to to work with other people. And so that's the biggest thing. Stepping outside your comfort zone is important, I think, in my opinion.
Mm,
Um, So that's sort of what I would kind of like to see more of is just more perseverance. So being around people that will empower you, lift you up, and even hold you accountable sometimes, and maybe put a little fire under you, give you that little bit of a boost, in a sense, or a little kick in the what, that can kind of say, hey, this is what I need to do. I need to move forward. I need to be persistent, and I need to, be accountable. So the main thing is always taking action because a lot of times it can be easy just to start withdrawing or putting because fear is a very powerful thing too.
mhm,
And most of the time, if you get a lot of no's, it's easy to just say, okay, I'm going to retreat, and therefore I'm just going to stop doing what I'm doing because getting the nose is crushing, and getting the nose sometimes can be scary. So, what better way to keep yourself safe is by not doing anything at all.
mhm,
And going back, our brain and our nervous system really has one purpose, and that's to keep us alive and help us survive
Mm,
and avoiding fear. Because now fear is a primal emotion that really kept us alive. If you go back to hundreds of years ago when we were in the hunter gathering in the Neanderthal days, there were a lot of things that are in the environment that were dangerous to us. Dinosaurs, um, saber-toothed tigers, other tribes. So
mm,
we kind of had to be almost in a constant state of be ready to fight or flight at any moment. And our brain, even though times have, become sophisticated greatly, our brain is still the same primitive survival mechanism that's going to keep us alive by keeping us safe.
mhm,
And therefore, any little bit of danger, which might be stepping outside our comfort zone, might be giving a presentation, going to this networking event, or putting ourselves out there, making ourselves vulnerable, is incredibly scary. And sometimes the brain says, "Well, you know what? I'm going to protect you from that." And so what winds up happening on a conscious level, you start to think, "Well, maybe this opportunity is not worth it. I'm going to stay home tonight. I'm not going to go to this networking event. I'm not going to make this presentation. I'm not going to apply for this because it's gonna waste my time." And what that's really doing is your fear is talking. You may not even realize it's on a conscious level that it's your fear.
Yeah. So incredible. I really like that. And I like the perspective from the past and so for the mind as well. So I really like your perspective of that as a PhD of psychology. I think it's very interesting. And like Will mentioned, that's really I love this to interview different guests from different industry because at the end of the day, it's always the same.
mm,
So it's just the way it is. And I'm pretty sure it's also the same in the as an entrepreneur, you don't succeed the first time usually, unless you're lucky. And so as an actor, I'm pretty confident that they need to go into multi different selection period in order to get the first role. And the first role is usually not the best.
mm,
It's when you start as an entrepreneur, you start a business. Rarely your first business is the one that will feed your family for all your life. You start somewhere, you get some success, and then you get to the next thing. And in acting, I can easily think that they may start in a I don't know commercial, and then they do like a little series that nobody watch, and then they start getting higher and higher. And I love the fact that you are producing like actor or help place actor in things like FBI, which is a huge show, for example, on CBS, and like Terrifier 3. I know that you play some actor there. It's pretty outstanding. I love that.
Thank you.
So do you have an example, of course, without naming names, of a situation where you took someone who was really down in the industry and you were able to speak him or her up in order to get a big role, without stating name, of course, but that would be interesting
Sure.
to understand.
Of course. Well, for the past few years, I used to help out, co-teach an acting class where I would teach the business side of things and agent side of things alongside of an acting teacher who would work with week to week on technique. And there was this young lady there who was, she was been acting for 9 or 10 years, wasn't booking anything, and the problem that we diagnosed her with, in a sense, was she was playing too small in her auditions. And in her professional life outside of acting, she was a VP of merchandising for like a Macy's, a local Macy's. So she was pretty on the corporate side established.
mhm,
And when you spoke to her outside of act, when she wasn't acting and just having a normal conversation, she had a very powerful gravitas to
mm,
her.
mm, mhm,
You could almost tell like this is why she was advancing in the corporate world very easily. However, her acting was very meek and mousy. And so and a lot of it had to do with confidence issues. And so we had to work, I kind of encouraged her to kind of, in a sense, transfer that her skills in corporate world, her confidence in corporate world, and transfer that to her acting.
Mhm.
And what that could mean is like, okay, she has a lot of presentations at work. I said, so when when you're talking to the boardroom, you're very up, and she had a very like kind of like an alto voice,
Okay.
but when she was acting, it became very high, which is we know kind of like when you start to speak highly or an upward inflection, it signifies subconsciously of inferiority and weakness.
Mm.
So we kind of, I had worked with her to substitute the environment now. Yes, you're playing a character, you're playing a cop, you're playing a social worker, but pretend you're back in that boardroom now. And while you're doing that, so shifting the mindset of that confidence in the boardroom, bring that into our acting, and it's took little bit of trial and error, but eventually it there was a transformation. She became much more confident, and she started booking work. She was one of the people I booked in on FBI. She booked a role in Orange Is the New Black when that was out. So it really boosted her confidence, and she, kind of disclosed to us that she was thinking of quitting. Because she was doing this for 9, 10 years and nothing was happening. I'm glad she didn't because she's really a terrific actress. But it was just that little bit of confidence that you need. That just that little bit of shift saying, okay, a big thing is confidence. And I think sometimes because my 21, 22 years of doing it, I noticed a lot of actors quit. There's a high turnover rate.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times, sometimes actors maybe quit before it's they're right near or they're right on the
Mhm.
cusp of something, but they just give up. And, again, I can understand them giving up. They need to some of them have families or thinking of starting a family, and they need a more steady set of income. So I can somewhat understand sometimes, if they wanna pivot and do something else because of that reason. But sometimes I also find that they're really close to getting where they're at.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm laughing because Will is very well known to always bring in that image that I'll let you tell it,
Oh,
but
yeah, you've probably seen this, Albert, but it's like 2 miners going after diamonds, and one is mining a path towards the diamond and almost breaking through to hit the diamond, but you can see the turnaround and walking away, and then the other is below, they're not as far along, but you can tell the determination, and they're gonna keep going till they break through and get the diamonds, so yeah, and that's exactly it. It's like sometimes people quit and like in that situation that you just shared, with that actor, she was thinking about it, you gave her the feedback on some adjustments she needed to make. Kudos to her, she was coachable, she did it, it sounds like, and then started to book the work, and now she's got a successful career in the acting business that built upon what she was already doing in the corporate world.
Yeah. No, and that's the whole thing too, because and I really like the mining example because you never know, like that miner may quit, and all they need to do is maybe swing a few more times, and they would have got that treasure. And but and that sometimes happens with a lot of people too. It's like some people quit way before they're right before they're about to hit a breakthrough. It's like, and then now they'll never know because they're not doing it anymore. So and they're unhappy, and that's the whole thing too. Is like if you're not doing what you love, you're gonna be unhappy and miserable. But sometimes comfort is a very powerful counterproductive agent that can work against us. Is
yeah.
is comfort because again we want to stay comfortable,
Mhm.
and that's the problem. When we stay comfortable, we're not going to grow, and when we don't step into that discomfort or that even that temporary state of confusion, like what am I going to do next?
Mhm.
And if that's why you often will hear a lot of successful actors or even successful people in general, celebrity sports figures, that were sometimes living out of their car or living at, spending every bit of their last paycheck, not knowing when it was going to come next. And yes, they were terrified, and I think rightfully so to be terrified. but they fought through it and then they saw the other side. So I think a lot of it has to do with just facing our fears and being okay with being uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And that, yes, that's a part of it. There's going to be times where it's going to be scary. There's going to be times where it's going to be a bit daunting. But the important thing is to power through it.
Mhm.
Nothing worthwhile comes easy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wanna pivot a little bit because everything we talk about now it's fantastic. I really love this so far, but it's really something we talk about all the time, and something in your resume that I'm interested to maybe have a word from you and understand better for me and the audience. It's about the hypnosis thing. I we never spoke about this in this
Yeah, that's true.
in our podcast, but since you are a specialist in that, can you tell us a little bit why we should be doing that when you are inspiring to be successful in life, and how that can help?
Sure, the one thing that hypnosis is really great for is working with the subconscious, the driving force of our existence. And a lot of times our behavior, we might do things and we experience things and we feel things and not know why we're doing it, but they're so empowered to us. I mean, think about how many times people set goals and never reach them or keep derailing their goal because there's something that's blocking you that you may not see, that you may not be fully aware of. And again, that could be fear, that could be unresolved trauma that happened to you as a child, that you haven't fully worked through yet. And so hypnosis can help you with that and help you address that by working with your subconscious mind.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like a gateway, right, to do it, and so,
Absolutely.
I think some people, they think hypnosis and they're, like, afraid they're gonna be put on stage and act like a chicken, but it
Yeah.
act I've heard of that where, people have used it to help quit smoking, they've used it for other health aspects, to your point, the mental aspect, kinda like to embody that growth mindset or possibility thinking and
hmm
thinking of that. So, how is when you first maybe broach that, when you diagnose with somebody and you're like, you know what, I think they would really benefit from that. I mean, do you find that most people are like very open to the idea, or is there a little bit of persuasion you have to do to get them to understand? Hey,
Sometimes, and the reality of hypnosis is we cannot influence free will. So when you see these people, even if they do act funny on stage, keep in mind one thing: they volunteered to go up on stage,
yeah,
Mhm.
so they already know what's about to happen, and they're already consenting to do that.
yeah,
So, and when somebody says to me, "Well, I don't want to act like I don't want to cook your chicken," so don't.
Mhm.
And
yeah,
because the thing is, you cannot make anyone do anything morally against their will. So if somebody comes in front of me and says, like, you're not gonna be able to hypnotize me," I'm like, "You're right."
yeah,
And okay, moving on.
yeah,
But if you're open to, maybe you're a little skeptical about it, then we can, talk about that and have those conversations and take, look, we go into hypnosis several times a day. So a lot of times we may even hypnotize somebody without even knowing it. So let's say you come home and your partner, significant other, says, "You look tired,"
mm,
and says it kind of with authority, and all of a sudden you start to feel a little tired.
mm,
That's could be example of hypnosis um, in action. Or let's say you watch a movie or read a book, and when you're about to sit down to either read that book or watch that movie, that what you're watching is fake and manufactured. We know that on one level, but yet we still get moved emotionally. We'll laugh, we'll cry, we'll get mad, we'll get scared, and experience a whole wide range of emotions. Yet we know on one level it's fake, but yet with that temporary disbelief, we go into a trance, we go into a a state of disbelief, and we start acting like that emotionally.
mm,
Why? Because we went into a state of hypnosis, and it just so we go into hypnosis several times a day. Which is like a flow state, which is a state of being receptive and open. And all I'm doing if I'm working with someone is doing this by design, getting into that state by design,
mm,
Hmm.
purposely. So it's not an unnatural state, and when a lot of people use hypnosis to stop smoking, other types of addictions, sometimes even fears and phobias. Sometimes people use it for sports performance, athletic performance to do better. Because as I was saying in the beginning, when we first spoke, when you visualize something in your brain, you're using, believe it or not, a hypnotic technique when you like close your eyes and let's say you're about to, if you're an athlete or if you're a speaker and you want to visualize the event going well and you doing very well in the event or doing it on the presentation or the athletic match, what you're doing is you're using your imagination
Mhm.
and you're putting yourself there because the brain does not know the difference between fiction and reality.
Mhm.
So if you can put yourself and program yourself for success, a lot of times your brain is already going to believe, okay, I can do this.
Mm.
And that's why athletes who spend a lot of time visualizing themselves before a match, before a competition, before a game, actually do perform better and more superior when they imagine in their head. And that's all hypnosis really, if you think about it. It's a hypnotic process by using visualization.
I love that, and,
Mm.
my guess is I'm gonna go on a little bit of a limb here, but, um, when I first heard about this was when, Dr. Dennis Waitley talked about his work with the Olympic athletes and how they perform better visualizing it, like actually feeling their
Hmm.
legs are running and, in their mind and stuff like that, and I've been a big believer in that, but I think, just being vulnerable, it's also one of the things I forget to do, a lot of times, and I don't do it, and, and even with things like I'm curious about your thoughts, like, with right? Right? Sometimes people talk about affirmations, but they're like, if you really want them to work, it's not just saying the words, you have to picture it in your mind, feel the feelings.
Right.
What are your thoughts around that? Are you also a proponent of that?
Yeah. I mean, affirmations are good, but they're, if you don't believe it,
Mhm,
I mean, you could sit there and say, all day long words. That's all they are.
mm,
But you really have to fully believe it and step into it. And one of the things that I think with affirmations, which are great by itself, but they're missing a piece of the action. Okay, what's the action you're going to take? Now, many years ago, there was a groundbreaking book and movie, which everybody probably heard of. It's called The Secret, The
Mhm.
Law of Attraction.
mhm,
Now, I do think there's a lot of great stuff in there, and I do think it's very valuable, but there are a couple issues that I had. It's number one, it was never really a secret. If you put your mind to something, you could achieve it.
yeah.
The other thing that I think is missing from a lot of the manifestation work is, where's the action that you're going to take to get there? Yes, it's great to have the expectation and the belief that that you're worthy, and that's extremely important. You need that. But where's the action steps? What's the implementation that you're going to do to get there? Where's that system coming in there? If I want to manifest abundance or wealth, how am I going to do that? Now, I can sit and imagine it, that's great, but I'm going to be eventually out on the street imagining it.
Yeah, you gotta
I'm
take
just being honest.
yeah.
So where is the implementation? And that's what's needed too. So yes, the important thing is you need the mindset to be extremely, targeted towards that. And the same thing with affirmations. Great, they're great,
Mm,
but the important thing is also to um, really believe it and fully step into it. One affirmation we use a lot is, right before you go to bed and when you wake up, say, every day and every way I'm getting better and better. I'm
mm,
getting in every way possible. So, but you really have to fully believe that. And you have to believe you're worthy enough, because that's another thing about wealth and money is, this is where a big subconscious belief is, people have blocks with money because they either fear money or they don't believe they're worthy of money.
mhm,
And this is where I think it affects a lot of business owners,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to like asking for money or asking, for the charge for services, because you don't feel you're worthy, it's going to be hard to get money. And this is why sometimes you'll see people who get into windfalls, like athletes or actors, even lottery winners, who, at a point in time, they win a large sums of money. And then 2 or 3 years later, they're in more debt than they were when they started because they didn't know how to process the money. They didn't know how to handle it. They just, it was like money became a radioactive substance.
You're right.
And And a lot of it has to do with the beliefs that we're taught. We're taught and there are, sometimes implied that money is the root of all evil or money is evil. And that's a misquote because the Bible never really said explicitly that money is the root of all evil. It was really the love of money or the love of pride, pride
Yeah.
was evil. It wasn't having money.
Right.
It was loving, when you loved it too much. But that's what any vice, that if you like it too much, it's not, it can be unhealthy. But we need to change our relation with money. We need to change our worthiness of money because that's like the self-sabotage. If you believe you're not worthy of making money or you believe that money is bad, inherently believe, then your brain, again, protecting you is going to do everything in its power to prevent you from making money.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I know we're coming up on our time here, but the thing that I've really enjoyed quite a bit in chatting with you, Albert, is everything that you've talked about. You can see the connections, right? Like having fear, overcoming your fear, taking action and not projecting why you're not worthy or things like that. Taking that leap of faith, having the comp to at least try, persistence and grit, and all that. That's been fantastic. And I guess as we look to wrap up now, was there one question we didn't ask that we should have that you wanted to make sure that you were able to share with our audience today?
Well, the one thing I will say, kind of going back to even with my work with hypnosis and NLP, we have all the answers within us. And it's just really about having someone that can help us tap into those resources
Mhm.
so that eventually you don't no longer need to reach that. In a sense, you no longer need to go to somebody else. You can have all the answers within. So we have all the answers within us.
I love that. And you're so true. And I think also one other thing you mentioned earlier that Nick and I talk about a lot is we say you are a reflection of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So to your point, we have the answers within. If you have the right support group around, they can help you unlock it, even though you don't necessarily need that because they are within. But sometimes, to your earlier point, you need impetus, somebody who's going to inspire that to come out of you.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And proximity is power. So you really need to be hanging out with successful people that will build you up rather than pull you down.
Awesome.
100%.
Wow, thank you so much, Albert. I know we could do this episode for a couple of hours, but respectful of your time and our audience time as well.
Sure.
Thank you so very much. I really
Thank you both.
feel as well. So thank you.
Yeah, and for anyone who looks to want to be in contact with Dr. Albert, whether it's about all his resources that he has available online to help with some of these topics as well as others that we didn't even touch on today, or you want to dip your toe into the acting business and make it into a full career, you can find all his contact information in the description of today's episode.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Albert. And winners, that'll do it for today's episode. Again, please be sure to subscribe, share, and follow 2 for the Win on your favorite platform. We're on all of them, including YouTube. And again, thanks to nickmenard.com and the 1% Push for sponsoring today's episode. And a sincere thank you for Dr. Albert for joining us today and sharing a lot of nuggets of wisdom. And we hope our winners, you found them extremely useful. And again, you can find how to contact him in the description. That'll do it today. We will see you next week, winners. Be well.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.